Yeah. So check the digital. This is Barbara Giro. Signal carriage, like the hills, Chad, I'm sure. We're at the school in the sun. You know, but yeah. That's right. Yeah. Oh, you know, sorry for the small, you know. That's all right. You know, cell phone. I'm hold on, hold on. You guys can see it. So. Got all the tricks. Turn the lights on.
She made it mid-flip. That 1 minute later, 3 minutes later, she goes, oh, I'm going to teach it walking down the side. But you guys were too. Yeah. She's like, that's
I don't think so. So this is actually a piece of music that I came across probably quite a while ago now, probably close to 30, 35 years ago. But it just so happens that it says my Long Island home. I'll play a little blurb for you because I had a couple of musicians that I know that actually reproduced it, played it, so you can hear what it sounds like. But this was, as it turns out, even though on the back you can't see it, it says on the back it talks about Amityville. So it originally looked like it was a piece of music that was written about Amityville. So on the back it said, you know, new $30,000 library. It says Amityville. My pointer is working. I got to turn it the right way. There you go. Amityville is a thrifty, progressive little town full of push and energy and abreast with the modernisms usually found in a place of its population. But it turned out that as I did a little more research into this, we found out that this is just a piece of music that they use for every town on the land. They just changed the blurb on the back for, you know, whatever town it was to try to entice people to come here. So kind of interesting, right? So as I'll play a little blurb because they did do it. Of course, it's this, you know. This is quite a while. It's 1929. Sweet time, sweet time. I will feel so okay, so that's enough of that. So the you said they used that for any town. They used it for any town, yeah. But it was something that real estate agents used to hand out to their prospective clients. I guess that many people played piano back then. So this was reproduced by Megan Brooks and Brendan McGlone. So if you know them, they took a, you know, I asked them to do it for me and they did it. So on the back it says a brand new $30,000 library and gas lights. So we were definitely way ahead of our time, 1929. So I got this guy. Let's see. Yeah, that's the front door. So, so a little bit about me. So I've been in Amityville my life since 1963. As you can see, my hit the wrong things here. And yeah. So my parents, Bill and Helen Schultz, they moved into 46 South Bay Avenue, January 5th, 1963. Of course, it was a summer back then. There was no insulation. There was basically no heat. So, 9 months later, I was, uh, and my brothers at the time, John and Bill, were 10 and 12 years old. So about 6 or 7, I started venturing out, you know what I mean, looking to the neighborhood, riding my bike around. Of course, at that age, you don't really know, but you saw things, what I mean? I saw empty lots and things like that. There was a whole bunch of that. So it wasn't really till later on that, of course, me being in the neighborhood, cutting lawns and seeing all the different things, I passed all kinds of things. What do you look at? You don't really look at these things. You don't think about these empty lots or these houses or what was there before or any of these things. So I really didn't think about any of that. But the next door neighbor, who was just south of us, Mrs. O'Keefe, an older lady, used to tell my father that she was there. And I don't know how true this is, because that would have made her really old at the time, and I don't think she was that old. When she was there, our house was brought onto the block on a barge with wheels up the end of the block. And that's what she was told by the Army Corps of Engineers. So that was the story that kind of started it. So, here I am now, older, and this is probably 35 years ago, on a cold winter night, watching NASCAR race, I'm sure, because I was bored. So I started poking around, thinking about what I could do to find out more about the house. I mean, the only story I really knew was that it came from an island in the Great South Bay that was sinking, and that's why they brought this house here. So, of course, I started to poke around a little bit more, find some more information. So, with all the information, there's so many different rabbit holes to go down. There's so many different things to look at. Thousands of pictures and documents that I've cataloged over the time. So, let's see. Let's go up. Okay. So I did call the Army Corps of Engineers at one point, and I talked to them, and that'll be later in the presentation. But this is about the presentation. So I started to expand my search, and over 200,000 pictures that I went through the National Archives. I mean, I'm hitting 200,000 pictures. I mean, you get in there, that's just like you put something in there. Then the next thing you know, it's 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. It's like, well, so we're going to bed for this. And it's like so many things. And it's just amazing that you find these things everywhere. People that aren't even in Amityville, you make a mention to them. And like her mother, she's heard this story a gazillion times. Everybody's heard about Muncie Island because I've been talking about this for 35 years, right? So we're over there for Christmas dinner, and I'm bringing up Muncie Island again, and she goes, hey, wait a minute, somebody just gave me a book of Babylon. And Muncie Island was in there. And lo and behold, there was a postcard in this book from Muncie Island. So again, more rabbit holes, because it kind of looks like our house might be in the back of that picture if you look, as you're going. So this is what Amityville looked like in the 1900s. I don't know if you guys can see over there. But there wasn't really a lot, right? I mean, back in the 1900s, what did we have? So when you look here, you'd see that this is Ocean Avenue right here. Okay? And this is basically what we're talking about right here. This whole land is basically salt marsh, right? This is Richmond Avenue that stopped at about Burdett, and it never went completely through. The yacht club isn't even here, right? This is Ocean Avenue. There's nothing here in 1900.
Just marshy, Chuck? It's just marshy?
It's very marshy. It's so marshy that back then they really didn't call Ocean Avenue Ocean Avenue. It was called the Mud Road. It was called the Path. They used it to get, Island used to use it to get to his meadow by the water because it was all mud. Because it was marsh. I mean, let's face it, anything, anybody who's done any building, South American Road knows this is all bog there.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. And that's because he dug the canals, put it on the marsh, and made more land that's boggy and marshy, and, so this is the kind of stuff they did. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the Babylon dock, because Muncie Island, lo and behold, is really not off of Amityville, you would think, right? Even though that we're talking about Muncie Island, it's actually off of Babylon. So we're going to start at the Babylon dock. We're going to do a little bit of a virtual type of a tour here. So we're going to take this ferry. So we're going to take this ferry. If you can notice, the name on the ferry says Tawanaco. So I used it because that is the ferry. Originally, it was just named the Muncie Island Ferry because it was for Muncie Island. But later on, it was called the Town and Country Estates, bought Muncie Island, and they changed everything to Tawanaco, Town and Country, Tawanaco, right? So there were other ferries of the time. There was the Oak Island, the Henry Ludlow, and then the Nokomis that went to Muncie Island. And Muncie Island was, a big island of the time. You're going to be surprised how advanced they were, like Amityville might have been, early on. So we're going to head out. Doesn't like to go when I scroll.
Is Muncie Island Fire Island then, or Jones Island?
Well, there's a map, so you're going to tell. So this is what happened. This is where we are right now. Okay, so this is Babylon. You can see this is the Babylon islip. You guys can see that. This is the Babylon islip water right here. So this is Babylon, kind of off of Bright Waters. And here's Oak Island here, Fire Island, right? But here's Cedar Island. If you're familiar with the state channel, you want to call it, really wasn't the state channel. But here's Cedar Island here. Here's Oak Island right here. Now these are still there today. See this little thing right here? That little thing that kind of looks like a foot? That's Muncie Island. So now in the early 1900s, we're going to talk a little more about it. I mean, it had, it was bulkheaded in. It had gas. It had hot, cold water. I mean, it was pretty big. It was so sought after at the time that people would sell their land or trade it, sell it for $1 thing. They'd sell the land in Hamptons for $1 in exchange for a piece of land on Muncie Island.
Wow.
So it was the upper crust of society were going here. Film stars, people like that. That's the kind of thing that Muncie Island was kind of known for. So it was a good getaway at the time. But then also you got to remember that all of Long Island was trying to be a getaway. I mean, you see all the land that was available in Amityville there before they put the streets in. Once they put the streets in, they couldn't give the land away. I mean, even on South Bay, when they were selling the land, if anybody lives on South Bay, you'd notice that your survey, you got 50 by 100 and 26, your survey is actually 2 plots of land because they're actually 25 by 126. And back then, they would sell them for $79 for a plot of land, 25 by 126. But it was land, so go ahead, build something. So this is Muncie Island. This is the foot. It doesn't look that big, right? And I saw this, and I'm like, okay, well, this is interesting. And you really don't notice where these things come from. There's going to be more stories, and you'll see why. But you don't realize how big this thing might be. It looks small compared to Oak Island and the other one, right? To Cedar. But it's actually kind of big. Now, this is a great map that I found because it actually has, back in the day, you didn't refer to 46 South Bay Avenue. You referred to it as the Schultz house. So everything on the map was this person's house, that person's house, which was great. Those names really helped me to find them when we got to Amityville here, So Captain Sandy, she's going to take us for a ride in the ferry. Captain Sandy.
What? I see her.
You see her, okay.
Yeah.
Captain Sandy's going to take us for a ride in the ferry. She's going to get us to Muncie Island safe and sound. She's got a life jacket on. She's good to go. So here we are now. You see the ferry here. This is the ferry arriving at Muncie Island. So a little bit about the Muncies. Edward Muncie was born on Christmas Day. Now, I don't know how he did this. Born on Christmas Day, 1852. So he spent a lot of time as a boy fishing on Cedar Beach shore, right, which is where I just showed you Cedar Beach there, right? And near his family land, known locally at the time as Royals Meadow, which would be the Muncie Island, the foot, right? So in 1892, he built a one-story, like a little shed there, a little shack. And of course, it was demolished in a storm. And that should have been his first sign. He goes, you know what? This is not a good place to be building. But he didn't take that hint. But now his father and his uncle were twins who were born on Christmas Day, 1818. So in the early 1900s, in 1905, they were the oldest twins in the United States. They were 90-something years old. Okay, so Edward Muncie and his wife, they were both MDs. They were married in 1883. Together, they established the first homeopathic dispensary and sanitarium in Brooklyn. Now, it sounds like they were doctors and it sounds like they were good, but they owned Muncie Island, so what they decided they were going to do is they commissioned a hospital in 1897 to be built on the island, and it was going to be a surgical hospital for women and men's issues, and they also did medical and religious retreats. Now, the downside to that is during the construction of this 3-story, 100 by 40 structure for this hotel, the hospital, while the workers are inside during the squall having lunch, blows off the foundation. Okay? So now the town says, we'll let you continue, but the thing of the day was they wanted them to do this Chappaqua thing, that there was a big Indian thing that everybody used to do at the time, so they wanted to have like retreats for that, and they agreed to it, and they continued. So what he did was, they decided they were going to put it back on the foundation. They decided they were going to put it back on the foundation, and he doubled down on it and said, you know what? Not only am I going to finish this, put this back on the foundation to finish this, I'm going to make it even bigger. So if you see right here, this little spot on the back here, so he put on a 35 by 20 foot extension as well. You know what? It's not big enough. Let's make it heavier. It won't blow off the foundation. Right? So how do you work there? So that's what they did. So, right? So, and it had everything. Like I said, it had gas, it had running water, it had hot and cold water. It was quite involved for something that was done of that day, in that time. So they did orificial surgery. Now, if you don't know what that is, that was done by the husband and the wife. And basically what they did was, the idea is whatever ailed you, they're going to go in one of your orifices and fix it.
How many orifices do we have?
You work on that and get back to me. I mean, we got, so, of course, at the time, this was a big thing, and they made a ton of money. Of course, it's what it's all about is money. They were, I forget what the numbers were. There were specific numbers, but they were making some, like $1 million a month today.
Wow.
In today's money.
Back then?
Is what they were making. It was crazy. And, of course, it turned into be quackery, and that was one of the things it did. Now, one of the things I thought was very cool, which I'm still in search of, was that Edward Muncie, in 1911, he was a painter as well. Not painting houses, but painting pictures. So he painted a picture. Not everybody's perfect, right? Yeah. So he painted a picture of Christ standing on a mountain with glorious heavens open behind him, and it was very large. It was a very large painting. And it was said that it was depicting a strong, powerful Christ about to step forward on his journey. Now, if he was about to step forward on his journey, why was the name of the painting called At the End of His Way? And it was supposed to give people comfort when they went in for surgery, but I don't think I'd be comforted by a painting that said At the End of His Way. But, needless to say, we're looking for that painting, because, it's got to be somewhere. So it was actually displayed not only at Muncie, but at Bible conferences around the country, and finally at his wake in 1924. So we're still trying to find that. Who knows? It's got to be out there somewhere. This is like 6-7 foot tall, from what I understand. So this one here was a picture, basically a picture of the hotel and the houses that were there. So at some point, which was in 1910, the owner of Town and Country Estates, M.B. Thayer, he went to Muncie and he goes, this is a really great island and it's really untapped. They got all these plots of land and stuff. I could build houses on these plots of land and I could sell them. So he bought Muncie and it's 25 acres and the hotel for $65,000, and he put another 35 to 40 into it to make bungalows and make it a getaway location of the day, trying to sell some people. So of course, you start plugging all these things in and going down these rabbit holes. So we go to this. Here I am on eBay, eBay, right? So I find a postcard. You might not be able to see it on the screen from where you're at, but if you look closely, you can see these little penciled in prices. I didn't do that. That's how it came off of eBay. So I don't know if Morris Thayer did that, or if maybe somebody went there to look at the houses and they wrote the prices in for the houses. This is on the bay side of Muncie. $3,500, $17, $2,250, $1,900, $2,700 for a house.
Yeah, now you put all these zeros.
Yeah.
Now the construction of these houses was definitely different, but we did, again, talking to people. So here we're talking to our neighbor who happens to live in one of the houses on the block. The house she lives in was the Rockefeller's old hunting lodge on Muncie Island.
Wow.
So we're going up and down the block, looking at some different houses. So Jazel and Rob Chester. She says, you know what? And I've always heard tale of this in some of the material that I've read, that there was a brochure on Muncie Island. Never saw it. She says, you know what? I have something that was left in the house when we bought it. She goes right inside, comes out with this photocopy of a brochure of Muncie Island. So my wife Bonnie, she took it and she reproduced it, and this is some of the pages from that brochure. Okay? So first printed in 1911, and again, they're trying to sell these houses, right? It's kind of some of the stuff that they did. Now, if you notice, this house over here has a little, got a little hammock there. One of the things that was special of the day was that most of these houses that came from Muncie, they all had porches, upstairs, downstairs, back, front. They all had porches. One of the things I was told is that in that time, they used to sleep outside a lot because of the TB, tuberculosis scare, and things like that. So they would sleep outside for the fresh air. But these are some of the different designs of the houses. Now, this all started because I wanted to get a picture of my house on a barge coming across the bay. How cool would that be, right? Or maybe on Muncie Island, that would be a holy grail to me. So I wind up finding all this information out about everybody else's houses and everything else in the neighborhood and find absolutely nothing about my house, okay? Of course, isn't that the way it works, right? So this is Muncie Island. So this is the pictures. This is the picture. It's a little bit clearer now. You can see. This is a map from 1915. It's got the names of the people that are have the houses on the island. Now, the reports have changed. You know, of course, they're trying to bulk it up for the newspapers. We got 100 houses sold. We did this. We did that. You know, you don't know how many they have. But these are the ones that have names to them and how much land is there. And maybe somebody owns it, but they haven't built a house yet. You know? So let me just jump back a little bit. So it said at the time of this that there was 107 landowners, but like I said, who really knows, right? This is what, after he bought the island, this is what he divided it up to be. So you can see all these different lots of land. These lots of land is 1,000 lots of land here. Here's the Muncie Island Hotel over here on the basically the toe of the foot, right? And here's all of these lots of land. Now you can buy these lots, like an avenue. You buy 2 or 3 of them and build a house, you know, whatever you need. $79 a lot. Give me 3. You know what I mean? I'll put up a house. So here they're actually selling for $190 for an 80 by 20 foot lot, which was pretty good money back then. So, you know, like anybody else, they've had business troubles and so forth, but that was the idea, was to try to make money at this. He was that's what he did. So here we go, ride to Amityville. So we're now on a ferry. This ferry didn't really go to Muncie Island, but we included this because it's important, because this ferry, the Atlantic, would typically travel to the beach, and we wanted to include Bill Connolly, who was an Amityville fire chief from 1943 to 1945. And he was also a neighbor, because he was reported to have 3 houses on South Bay Avenue. So we're riding down the State Boat Channel. That doesn't exist. Towards the Amityville Cut. That doesn't exist. And towards Amityville. And we'll relay a little bit of a story. So one day, Bill was taking the ferry from the Amityville dock, Ocean Avenue, out to the beach, and he has to meander through the shallows and things like that, because you can't hit bottom, right? And he's got a passenger that's heckling him. This guy, Al Brown, keeps heckling him. He's like, come on, go straight. What are we doing here? It's taking forever, right? So he tells Al Brown, sit down, shut up, I'm going to throw you overboard. Now, Bill Connolly was over 6 foot. He had big mitts, right? Big hands. He had like baseball gloves for hands, right? This guy was a monster. So he tells him, sit down and shut up, I'm throwing you overboard. So anybody who comes from Amityville knows that Al Green's real name is Al Capone. So he spent 2 to 3 summers with us here in Amityville, right? So here we are approaching the yacht club. Now, my house sticks out like a sore thumb because we've got this dreaded roof right here with this valley in the middle, which, of course, was beyond repair and we had to remove it. But so it looks like a big F. So you can always see it from wherever you are. So this is an early picture of the yacht club, and you can see some of the houses. One of the houses I really like is 47, which is across the street. If you can see right here, it's kind of hard to see. It's a better picture later, but it had a curved top door. I remember that even as a little kid. It's the only house on the block with a curved top door.
Which house?
It's 47, it's right there. That would be Frank and Ionel's house.
I was to say, it's Frank and Lisa Diana.
Yep. So, it's quite interesting. So we've got some great pictures. So we're coming up on the yacht club here. Okay. Let's see. Go. No, of course not. Why would it? We're coming up on the yacht club. So on September 7th, 1900, the yacht club, with land donated by the Island family, was started. Ocean Avenue, like I said, was called the Cow's Path, the Mud Lane, Islands Lane. It was just a path for them to get to their spot. Yeah, because it was all mud. You really couldn't. It was, if you were walking it, I guess you could deal with the mud. But, you can imagine if you were walking through, like, the marsh out on one of the islands or something, it'd be kind of tough, right? So it was used by the baymen for the most part. So it wasn't until they decided, we're going to give you the land, that they decided, we'll cut down some trees, we'll slap it over this road, and then we get down there with horses and carriages to build the yacht club, okay? And that's, Ocean Avenue wasn't really even paved until 1922, when they actually paved Ocean Avenue, made it something that they could, could actually pass through, So, but that's a good yesterday and today one. And you can see the difference of the yacht club, right? So I tried to take a lot of these yesterday and today pictures when I could to try to point it out. So you can see some of the houses here on the block as we come down the canal here. These are all,
Excuse me, Chuck, you have South Bay on the
South Bay.
west.
Yeah, South Bay is over
On
here.
the east.
Yeah, South Bay is over on this side. These are the houses here. And this is the yacht club. See how bare it really is. Just very similar to this. So this is the yacht club here.
Okay.
I'm used to looking at it. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
To me, I look at it and I know what's what. And you can see the houses on this side here. So you can see here, pretty much, you can't see my house because my house would be about here. But this, I remember, is Mr. Schneider's house. This is Rob and Jasel's house right here, the hunting lodge. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. So this is a closer shot of it. You can see Frank Diana's house. See that curved top door? Boy, that sticks right out.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because this is the house. This is my house. This is the house next to us, George and Diane. So you notice that they have this garage that looks very similar to our garage. We used to have that. We knocked it down. It was in just bad repair, and that was sinking as well into the bog, and it would flood constantly even at high tide. So there's 4 houses that have that same garage. So those 4 houses, I think, came from the island, and they probably came about the same time, and they just said, let's build the same garage. Because they're identically the same garage. But this is cool. Now, my father used to have a mahogany century, which I would love to find. Probably never will. But I saw the wood boat, and I was like, oh, that's great. That's right up his alley. If that would have been him, that would have been too good. But so here we are at the yacht club. Here's that M in the back again, right? You can see that M in the back. So now we're at a party at the yacht club. So we just landed, got a chance to see it nice and comfy. So now there's another shot. You can see a little bit better shot now of the same, again, yesterday and today. Same type thing, But
So,
quite.
Chuck, what does it say on the top of the postcard? I mean, it's funny that people would take a picture of that.
Well, it says Creek View from Uncle Corinthian Yacht Club, Amityville, Long Island.
Yeah.
Back then that was a big site, Now, if you look here, you can kind of see that canal goes pretty far down. So this is probably around the 2030s, I would say. It's probably when this postcard is, and there's a reason for that, but we'll get to that too as we get a little closer. So this one's interesting because I was corrected, and it's still kind of up in the air. It says 1940s. Now, Jack Johnson from the Yacht Club said, yeah, I think it's about 1940s. But Steve Bryce goes, I know that black boat. I worked on that black boat was this guy's, and he paid that much for it. And, Steve knows everything.
Yeah.
But you know what? He does, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, he probably does. He's probably right. That's the thing. You want him to be wrong once in a while. But no, Steve's a good guy. So, and this is the scary part. So they had a beach here. There was no pool. There was no pool. There was no dock. They had this beach here. Now, even if it's 1958, it's still not good because I remember as a kid sleighing down that beach. And that beach didn't exist when I was a kid. It was already So what was I thinking? I remember going down there with my brothers, somehow or another. But I was a kid. Crazy, right? Yeah. So Uncle Place was officially designated a village street July 12th. 1918, when they handed it over to the village. So, yeah, you fly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, we'll continue our virtual tour as we jump back into it. This is a photo that the yacht club didn't really use. When I say it was a photo, it's very large. So large they really couldn't even display it. So we swapped photos, and I have it displayed, and I got it preserved. But it's for 1953. It's an aerial photo. And you can see here that here's the yacht club. You can say by the big parking lot. Here's the yacht club here, right? Yacht club in the big parking lot. And you still see this beach here. There's still no pool yet. But this big land over here, which now is empty, used to be O'Brien's Beach.
Yeah.
Back in the day, O'Brien's Beach was a public beach where people go rent a chair, umbrella, and the common people.
Yeah.
The pedestrians. Not you guys who go to the yacht club. It's the point of you. Where were you now? So I'm across the canal, so I don't know what
You don't want to
It's
go.
big money. So, but O'Brien's Beach, people used to go here. Now, of course, it's empty land now. I think they only lasted like 1910 and 1920-ish. O'Brien's Beach. They kind of went out when the Amityville Beach was open, and so kind of interesting. So we're going to walk out onto right over here. We're going to walk out onto Uncle. We're going to walk down Uncle. Because, of course, with all these rabbit holes, I came across some really interesting things you might care to know. So, kind of interesting. So, here is O'Brien's Beach in a little shot, so you can see it yesterday and today type of a thing. They had a little house, a little shack there. They had, boats. There's a guy standing here with his dog. Guy standing here with his dog. Right, so the dogs were allowed on the beach. I guess that was a good thing. So this is another shot. The boats. You can see the hotel in the back, right?
Yeah.
What was it?
That's the Hathaway, right?
How, is it over here?
No, that was owned by the Amityville Beach.
I'm pointing at Earl, right?
The New Point Inn. Oh, yes, that's correct. That's them. That's those two right there. That's what you're looking at. Yep, that one with the spire right there. That one on the end. That's that one right there. You can see it, right?
Mhm.
And people used to come up there with the little rowboats. You used to rent the rowboats and the whole deal, right? Quite interesting. What you can find in postcards. Now, this was special because I have a map that I came across that shows the area. Now, realistically, back in the day, this was really the first development that happened in Amityville. Was Umpqua, South Bay. It was really the first development. Because before that, you build a house here, you build a house there, you do this, you do that. But this was actually, the guy bought this land and started putting up, was going to put up, right, he was going to build homes. That was the master plan. Now, the reason why I pulled this one out is because if you look here at this little thing, it's on the sea, but that right there says Sperry Hydroplane Station.
Wow.
So, Lawrence Sperry, he had built a hydroplane station, and he was testing planes, his guided torpedo. Okay? So what he used to do is he'd put them on here, and he'd shoot them out on his train tracks here, and he'd pull them back up the train tracks, load it back up, shoot it back at him. So he used to do testing right here. And this testing that he did right here, everybody in this room has touched at some point or another, has used it.
That's Uncle Frank.
Exactly, saved all our lives and we don't even know. That's Uncle right there. Now, this is a map from 1990, August 25th, 1990. So I did a little bit of math and I measured the block, and I think that it's basically right where this house was here, is where this hydroplane station was. So Sperry was quite the character. He was like an Errol Flynn of the time, that kind of character. Now, of course, the tracks wouldn't have been worth anything if Harry's grandfather didn't help grease those tracks for Lawrence Sperry.
That's from LaRose's house.
That's a true story. So,
Chuck, there's a plaque there, the monument that's sitting on the corner.
we're getting there. So Lawrence Sperry, he was, the kind of guy that's like his father. His father was an inventor as well, and his father, Elmer, he invented this way for ships to go straight without bouncing and turning and all of that. He invented this big gyroscope, but this gyroscope was like 3-story building size. And it was perfect for ships because you could fit a 2-story, 3-story house inside of a ship, right? But it was huge. But that was his claim to fame because he was an inventor. So he told his son, I want you to go to college. He goes, I don't have time for that. I got too many things to do. Lawrence, right. So Lawrence, at 17 years old, him and his brother, they built a glider. And this is back, of course, when airplanes were, who could fly these things? Did he even fly? So they built the glider. They pulled it behind a car at a racetrack. And the rope broke, 150-foot rope breaks, and he glides this thing to the ground, and he was sold. That's it. He wants to be a flyer. That's what he wants to do. So his first powered flight was in 1909. He got his license. He went to school to become a pilot and work so he could make the money. His license number was number 11. He was the youngest person to ever become a pilot.
Wow. 11.
So this is him. What he did was he took his father's invention, which was very big, and he made it very small enough to fit into a plane. And he decided he was going to take this over to the big air show in France. And of course, France, they looked at the Americans as Americans, right? So he was the last one out of 57 planes to go. And they basically had this, they would fly down this like runway type of a thing in front of the reviewing stand, and everybody would look at him and they'd judge him and the whole thing. So they said, you know what? They thought this was a funny thing. Let's have the band play Star Spangled Banner when he comes down. So he comes tearing down. Now, meanwhile, everybody's there, oh, look at my new wing design. Look at my new carburetor. Look at my new prop. Look at this. Look at that. He's the only one has this gyro stabilizer. So he comes flying down. The band starts playing the Star Spangled Banner. They think everybody's laughing at him. They're having a blast, the whole thing. He comes flying past the viewing stand, and there he is, standing out on the wing, waving to the crowd. And everybody's like, who's flying the plane? So he turned around, he came back, and he did it again. So there. So that's the kind of guy that he was. He was a showman. So he built his first hangar down on Umpqua. You can see it right there. This is actually Umpqua here. Here's the tracks. This is what he had here. So one of the things that, because he had this gyroscope that was basically an automatic pilot. So anybody who's ever flown in a plane in this room, well, thank you, Lawrence Sperry, because the automatic pilot is the exact same automatic pilot that he invented. So the reason why it says right there, he built this hangar in 1916. He built the first hangar on Umpqua with the tracks into the Great South Bay to launch his guided missiles. And he showed the Navy his guided missile, which is why down on Umpqua, when he demonstrated it to the Navy, there's a plaque that says first guided missile. Now, of course, this is a clean one because Bruce Hopper, thank you to him, I asked him if I could clean it up. He goes, let me see what I can do. He sent somebody down there and called me back about 15 minutes. Like, it's done. So it's clean. You can read what it says now. So this is a historic plaque, the first guided missile. So, we're all in this room, and we all remember, we're old enough to remember Desert Storm, and we're all old enough to remember the Patriot missile that blew the missiles out of the air, and we all remember the smart bombs that we have, right, that we can pinpoint, put right where we want them to put. Well, guess what? That technology came right off of Umpqua Place.
Wow.
It's the same stuff that he invented. And he was working on aerial torpedoes back in the day. So, of course, an aerial torpedo looked like an airplane, but it was a torpedo. And the idea was he could send this out, and we were approaching World War I, so he could send this out, and they could use it to fight with, right? So there's Captain Sandy guarding the flag. We want anybody touching the flag. So, because Sperry got, he was, of course, he did the thing with the guided missile, and the Navy was like, you know what, this guy is an asset. We got to make sure we take care of him. He wanted to join the Navy, wanted to fight during World War I. They said, no, we'll make him an ensign just to get him, give him a title, but we want him to be making stuff. He's an inventor. He's got a lot in him. So they gave him $250,000, and of course to work on his idea, his project for the U.S. Navy. But you know what? The checks don't come that quick from the government, do they? So in the midst of that, he was given flying lessons. So of course he had to give flying lessons, make a couple bucks. But of course most of the people he took out for flying lessons were young females, right? So he just happened this one day he took out a married female to give us some flying lessons, and they're flying over the Great South Bay in Babylon, and they crash into the Great South Bay. So this duck hunter sees the crash, he goes, "Oh my God!" They come rushing. He comes rushing. Some doctor comes rushing to help him, and they're totally naked. He goes, "The crash was so horrific, it blew our clothes right off." So as it turned out, in the heat of the moment, it wasn't a malfunction, but somebody turned off the automatic pilot, and they crashed. So he also invented the Mile Hunt Club. So he was also credited with that as well. So you can say thank you to him if you've ever been in a plane for that. You can say thank you. So this is a parachute. We all know what a parachute looks like. Well, guess what? Yeah, you invented that too, right? So, of course, he invented the parachute. Now he's going to Dayton for the big air show in Dayton, Ohio, right? And nobody wants him to jump. Of course, the Navy's like, no, you're too smart. You're not jumping with a parachute. And his father doesn't want him to jump. They steal the parachute. So he can't jump. They hide him. So, of course, he's there with his brand new wife, who, was, of course, she was, she was the pretty new bride, Winfred Allen, who was the, movie star of the day. So she's there. So, of course, who's sitting right next to him because they were friends of the family. And, 71-year-old Thomas Alva Edison is sitting right next to him because pretty young girl, right? Where are you going to sit? That's where you're going to sit. She bats her eyelashes, finds out where the parachute's hidden. He goes and gets a parachute. He can't get up in the plane. Asks one of his friends, take me up in the plane. Takes him up in the plane. He jumps out. Parachute is gliding. Everything looks great. Beautiful. Everybody's like, oh, my God, what is this? He's gliding down. Gust of wind comes, blows him into Dayton. He gets hooked on a building, 150 foot in the air, hanging from the parachute. The firemen come. I think, Kev, you might have been there. They got the big net. They're like, come on, jump, we'll catch it. They send people up to the roof, right? Probably the chief. It's probably maybe Harry or Rick going up to the roof. He goes, I'm not having these guys get me down off the parachute. He climbs up the parachute onto this little ledge, this cornice. He throws the parachute in the air and jumps off the building. Glides down perfectly, bounces once in the net, to the crowd's astonishment. Again, it's all about showmanship, right? Maybe he learned it from P.T. Barnum. Who knows? Who knows what was going on there? So he was quite the character. So we're still on. Did I miss a slide? Yeah. So one of the couple last things he did was he was doing basically a wind tunnel test of this bomb. So he took this bomb, which looked like a plane, right? Strapped it to the top of a car of the day that was able to do 80 miles an hour, and took it down Motor Parkway. So if you're going to work to see this guy, you're probably going to want to pull over. Right? So he's checking out the wind tunnel. Now, sadly, it was later on that one cold December day in 1923, he was flying from England to France, and the plane went down an English channel. And they found the plane, they found his flight jacket, but he was about a mile away from shore. He tried to swim to shore and he didn't make it. At 30, he passed away. And the contributions that he probably could have gave us,
30?
who knows?
30,
31 years old, yeah. So as we travel down Umpqua, still on our right-hand side, there's a thing that people might remember, Bungalow City, right?
Yeah.
So that these little bungalows, people used to come from the city. They'd go and they'd go out there with their baskets and get their clams and their crabs and whatnot. What's that?
It was always mafia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know the family. They came from the Bronx.
The family.
Yeah.
They were connected.
They
Seriously.
were connected.
So they would come out to the bungalow. Well, they should be connected, considering how much they want for the empty lot right now. But yeah. So yeah, the Bungalow City was there. When I remember as a kid, forever. It was always there. And now today it's just the gate and what's left after Superstorm Sandy. Oh yeah.
In summers.
Okay, that's cool.
They'd
I
be
know.
here in the summer.
I know on my block we used to have a lot of people would come out for the summer and then they'd be gone for the winter.
Yeah.
It's definitely a summer community for sure. Yeah. So that was a big spot there. Now as we move a little bit more down Umpqua, now we're on the left-hand side. We're looking towards Ocean Avenue in Richmond, right? We're on the left-hand side. This is a corner of Umpqua and Richmond. This is the brick house that's on the corner there.
Oh, yeah.
So this brick house was built by Martin Meyer. Now, Martin Meyer, he owned a brick manufacturing company, hence the brick house part, right? He's probably like, maybe 10,000 bricks building a house this weekend. So he built this house, and he is also the one that bought this land. So he purchased most of the land in that area and made it into what he called was Umpqua Park on the Bay, 1919. And at the time, the canal by the yacht club only went to about the yacht club property. So he probably extended it all the way down, we're not sure, but he probably extended it all the way down to the end because he's got a boathouse there by his house. So I'm sure he wanted to float his boat, right? So this is...
Just want to apologize, I have to take down something at home. Hi, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you so much, guys. Sorry I can hear the rest of it. It sounds really, what?
So this
I
is
never heard that phrase, Uncle Park on the Bay.
correct. I never heard of it myself. But this is the map, and this is what he proposed, and this is what the map that he had from August 25th, 1919. So as you can see, there's Sperry's station there, right? And there's the bathing pavilion. Here at the time, this was the Narragansett Inn. Here's Ocean Avenue, Uncle Place. You have the Uncle Yacht Club, and these are all the land lots that he had on Umpqua, the Uncle Canal, and then here's South Bay. So these are the lots of land on South Bay, both sides, and the canal that would join the back of the houses on South Bay to Norman was Myers Canal, named after him. I'm sorry, of course. So this was what he had on the map, and the idea was he was trying to sell plots of land. He wanted to build houses. I'm sure he probably did do some. I didn't come across any that he did build, but this was his Uncle Park on the Bay that he had. So from some of the newspaper articles and stuff, it says that he purchased a lot of cottages from Muncie Island to be moved to Amityville for this. I guess he figured that it would be a lot easier to put a home on the land and be able to sell it than to sell the empty land and have somebody build a home. It's a lot easier to just come in and buy a home. They're done, right? So the articles also say that he built about 200 homes. I don't think he had 200 lots of land to build 200 homes. But they always pump those things up, right? It's all part of the marketing technique, right? So sadly, Martin Meyer at age 66 committed suicide. So he said a lot of his friends said he had suicidal tendencies. Now, the person that lives in his house, I got a lot of information from him, but I was able to tell him that he didn't die in that house. Because if you read the article here, it says, in the middle of the night, he crept out of the house and went to the cottage. And that's where the family found him later on that day. Illuminated gas. So personally, I don't know if the time when he passed away, if the illuminated gas even had the odor in it at the time. So he might not even have known. So maybe it wasn't really suicide. Maybe it was just what it was. Accidental. Yeah. So it wasn't until that school blew up that they decided, hey, let's put some motor in that. That's not good, right? So anyway, Ella Myers, it says that she and the children continued to sell property into the 50s in the area, but I really don't have anything to back that up. So there's really nothing on that. So jumping back to Muncie Island real quick, this is some of the things that happened. It made moving from Muncie Island a necessity because in 1915 there was a storm that flowed Cedar Inlet with sand, and then because the sand was there, it built up and it flooded Muncie Island. So these are some pictures we actually have, courtesy of the Buds. Corinne Bud came up with these from her grandmother, and this is just somebody who's mugging. There's a roof of a house, whether it fell off a house or it sunk into the mud. But they're kind of mugging for pictures. You can see some of the damage that they have here, and then look at some of the pictures. So in 1918, the storm prompted removal of most of the cottages to Amityville and Babylon. Now, my house was built in 1917. We found a newspaper in the wall by the rear door, and we framed it, put it up on the wall. It was built in 1917, so it's possible that it could have been moved right after that storm, because that's when they were pulling them off of the island. So, the question is, who really moved these houses to Amityville? I called up Drake and some of these other people, maybe, a lot of our records burned up in fire, or, so it's a long time ago. So they didn't have a lot of information. But the information I did come up with was that, originally, the story was the Army Corps of Engineers. So I said, all right, let me start with this. So I called the Army Corps of Engineers. This is before the internet, by the way, most of this stuff. So I called the Army Corps of Engineers. The guy's like, well, I don't know. Let me go see if I can get this guy. He might know. Okay. So I'm waiting on the phone. He comes to the phone, and he says to me, he says, so what do you want to know? So I told him. He goes, well, I can tell you this. He goes, the Army Corps of Engineers did not move any houses from Muncie Island. He goes, I can tell you that the Fire Island shore is the second worst shoreline in the United States. Second to the Outer Banks, which is the worst. He said, but there's no way the Army Corps did that. And he says, you're lucky you caught me. He goes, today's my last day. I've been here for over 50 years, and I was just at my retirement party next door when they came and got me to come talk to you on the phone. So there was no way I was going to get any more information than that. I mean, because this guy was there for this. So that was quite the entry. So, even though it might have been the Army Corps of Engineers with the barges and the wheels, I don't think that was the case. But, you never know. You gotta, it's all I could do is to try to call him. Because that was pretty much all we could do. Now, the Freestat Underpinning Company and Dittman Company of Amityville seemed to be both of the ones that did work, moving the houses. And it was kind of in a hurry because the island was flooded, remember, right? So they either had to get the houses off of there or they were just going to lose them. And because the sand was moving around so much and because the island was being flooded so much, it was very hard to get to the island. So in some of the reports that I read, they dug a channel to get the barges in there in order to get some of the houses out, but they only got some. And then by the time they got back, they had to re-dig the channel. So who was paying for the digging of the channel? They were sharing it, and the island people were sharing it, and the people that was bringing the houses over for were sharing it. So the people that owned the houses on Muncie were like, well, my house is getting flooded. I got to do something with it. So that's why Amityville was the place for them to go. It seemed like the best place because it had land and it was fairly close. Even though when you think about it, in my mind, back then, Babylon, Amityville, that's a long distance, I think, for a house to go. But
Why was it sinking?
it was because of a lot of things. It's because that shoreline was constantly moving. And because that inlet filled up, the water had no place to go to get out. So it was just backing right up and it was covering the island. So even though it might have been bulkheaded, you get a little bit of extra high tide, like a moon tide or a storm, you get covered. And how many times you have to be flooded before it just gets worse and worse and worse. And if the sand was moving that much that they couldn't even get close enough to it with the boat, it was being overtaken by Mother Nature, So I came across an article at the Amityville Historical Society when I went there, and this is why I wound up doing this for the Historical Society. And they said, hey, we got something on Muncie Island, because it was the only thing they had. They pulled this out and reading this article. I see my name in the article, and I'm like, who wrote this thing? And it was Doc Fleming. So, again, this is a good fire department story. Here we are at a Hose 1 meeting, right? We're having something after the meeting. Sit down at the table. I got Jack Robinson. I got Steve Bryce. I got Doc Fleming. I sit down with my whatever, and I say, okay, Muncie Island, go. Who's got anything on Muncie Island? So Doc starts telling all these stories about Muncie Island. So because it was fresh in his mind, he decided, I'm going to write this story for the Historical Society. And I wound up in their newsletter, and that was the article they gave me. So because I saw my name, and I'm like, all right, something's wrong. But that was a great article, because he went house by house. Back then, the doctors used to go to the houses, right? So he went house by house. He knew everybody who was in those houses, which was really good. So between that and Corinne Budd, they came up with a lot of information. So the totals are anywhere from 14 houses, 11 houses, 19 houses that came from the island. I got about 19 houses. I think it might even be closer to 23 houses that came from the island.
Out of 15 on the block?
Really?
Out of all the houses that are on the block. And there's definitely one on Uncle. So we're going to talk about that too. But definitely one on Uncle, might even be more on Uncle. Because remember, he had all this land, and if he could buy these houses pennies on the dollar, why not, right? I'm sure he wasn't paying a lot for them.
Was Doc Fleming on Bennett?
Yeah, he was on that again.
Okay.
Yeah, because on my survey, his name Muncie, and I'm on South Island.
Okay.
So-
But was it with Y or an IE?
Yeah, is Doug Muncie.
I'm not sure. I
Yeah.
haven't looked at
Yeah.
it.
So, of course they were moving the houses, right?
Yeah.
Well, this house, Dittman didn't get all the way there.
Boston, oh my God, look at,
Because it was so treacherous at the time that they couldn't go the way they would normally go and bring the houses across the bay, so he decided he was going to go out the inlet. So, it slipped off the barge and didn't make it. So he had to pay $2,900 for the house, and he had to burn it dead so the navigation hazard.
$2,900.
Yeah. So, just think we could have floated that thing, floated over, got a couple bucks for it, you never know.
He was going out of the inlet, where was he going?
He was trying to go around the other way, and I guess he was going through the inlet or going through the inlet to get around the island because the island was impassable. It was just so shallow there. So all they had was a small little, channel that they dug to get there, close enough.
Yeah.
So this is Seven Uncle. So this is a friend of mine used to live there, and I come across this. This is one that Doc Fleming had said came from Muncie Island, and although I haven't substantiated it, I believe it's correct because it looks like a Muncie Island house. Muncie Island houses are very distinct because, they look like they're stucco. They're really not. They're actually made out of concrete, reinforced concrete about that thick. So in order to put a window or a door or change something, it's quite an undertaking. So that was the construction of the time. They thought that was going to work well. 2x4 on the flat with this concrete on it, wire and lath. It was pretty heavy duty. I can't even imagine what it took to raise these things to put them on a barge. They had to be a monster, really. So as we move, and then we now look on the other side of, we're going to move around the corner. Now we're kind of on Richmond, right? And we're looking towards the Amityville dock. This is on our right side, the Narragansett Inn. So the Narragansett Inn is a gorgeous looking hotel, right? And the Narragansett Inn was, it was a Narragansett Inn. It was the Ocean Point Hotel, built in the 1880s, originally called the Conklin House because the owner, Bernie Conklin. And then it was called, Shanahan's. It was called the Shangri-La. And sadly, it burned down in April 1965. So, again, one of these things where you're talking to somebody and you say, you know what, I'm doing this thing, we're talking about this, and the guy goes, you know what I got in my garage? I got a sign from Shangri-La. After it burned down, I picked it up off the curb.
Wow.
So, he gave me this one.
wow.
That's great.
Peter Castle.
Peter Castle?
Yeah.
Yeah, Peter Castle. So now we're looking straight ahead. We're looking, there's a Narragansett Inn yesterday and today. It's a gorgeous place. Can you imagine, right? Nice. So here's the village dock. So everybody knows the village dock, right? It's always been a focal point, right? It's where the ferries used to pick people up, take them out to the beaches. The trolley used to come down there, right, and drop people off. It was a big place. It was a really meet and greet type of a place. Well, here's another picture. Now, this is something that, again, those, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning things, going to the archives. That is Lawrence Sperry's seaplane at the Amityville dock.
Wow.
So I tried to get the same exact point of view there. Today, I actually have the photos for that. The actual large photo for that, because I purchased that too. We're at the village dock. If we turn to our left and we look on the Ocean Avenue side, I guess, as you're looking at the bend, this is the Canfield's Pavilion from 1890, and this is the place where everybody used to meet to wait for the ferry and the trolley and whatnot. They'd kick their bikes down there and whatnot. And they'd sit outside on the back deck and have something to drink or eat, whatever. So that was a pretty.
Still there?
That is not there. No, that is where the big house now, the Fritz house. That's all.
Oh, yeah.
The big one on the end there. Now, I don't know if the house that they had used to be the Canfield's Pavilion or part of it, but it's a brand new house now.
Let's see.
You don't want to know how much the taxes are? You should move that out. What's that?
The Allen property?
It's right at the end of Ocean Avenue there.
Yeah.
Right now, it's
Pratt.
Pratt.
Yeah, Pratt was there.
Okay, I don't know who owns it now.
The Allen owned that for many years. Yeah.
Right.
It was the Morton Homes.
That's
Palmer House.
Isn't that? I think that might be the next one. That's the Palmer House, right? The one that's right here,
Yeah.
right at the bend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the one we're talking about is actually the one where this new house is built right here. The one that was up for $2.4 million.
Yes.
And taxes, forget about it. Don't ask them that way.
That 2008.
Yeah, yes, you can't afford it. It's all because of this guy. So, this Morton Mama House, boy, that's a gorgeous house as well. I mean,
Yeah.
unbelievably, architecture back then, awesome. So, yeah, I mean, crazy. So, here's the trolley. Not a lot of pictures of the trolley because it didn't last long, and it was a failure besides. But it did come to Amityville, and this is the trolley. That's kind of exactly the way it looked, crossing over 110. That's the trolley trestle. Yeah, so it used to, back then, the trolley would go Richmond Avenue and stopped at Burdett, right? So they had to extend Richmond Avenue all the way down to Ocean in order to bring the trolley down. For one reason or another, they didn't want the trolley to go a certain way. So here, what they did was, the trolley went to down Broadway to Bennett Place, turned right onto Hildreth Court, and then went south on Richmond Avenue. And that's how it got to the docks. So it was said that it took 1 hour and 15 minutes to get from the city to Amityville Dock.
Pretty good.
I don't know if you make that happen.
It
It takes you access so we can get up to the train station.
takes a lot longer now.
Did it turn around that White House? Is there a Chuck? Did it turn around?
What's that?
White House, it's a two-family house on.
I'll get to that. You're too cool for the room, man.
Sorry.
All right, so here we are. Here's the trolley. This is the only picture I could find of the trolley at Richmond and Ocean.
Wow.
Now, of course, how many times, I don't know if it was there when I was a kid, but there's a historic sign down there for the historic site for the trolley.
Where is that sign? Where is that sign?
It's right there. It's at Uncle in Richmond. Uncle in Richmond. Yeah. And it was from 1909 to 1919. There's the trolley. There's the guy sitting there. So now, as we're sitting there looking at the trolley, now we turned around on Richmond. Now we're looking towards South Bay, right? There's that white house. Two-family house. That's correct. That was the trolley repair barn because it was so far away from home that we needed a place to repair them down this way, and that was where they were pulling them. They were fixing them. Right, they lifted it up. Yeah, and I think it might have been 3-door too, right? It might have been 3 garage doors when I was a kid, or 4, whatever it was. So that was the trolley repair barn. So quite interesting. So yeah, it was raised after Hurricane Sandy. Now, if we turn and we look down South Bay Avenue, this is what South Bay Avenue looked like back in 1910, as opposed to what it looks like today. So it's still got trees, but look at all the space, right?
Yeah.
So it's amazing there was nothing there, right? Absolutely nothing there. So
Yeah.
I guess in order to sell a piece of land, it was probably easy to have a house on it. That's what I'm thinking. So I try to get the perspective. So again, this is something I know if Harry was up there, he would have already said this, but I'm up there, I'm talking to Bruce about something, Bruce Hopper, and I said, again, Muncie Island thing. Harry knows the safe well. When he was up there, he goes to the safe, opens the safe up, takes out this loose leaf book, and here it is. So this is when Martin Meyer gave to the village of Amityville, says Uncle Park right here, from Richmond Avenue southerly to the Great South Bay, gave the road to the village from Martin Meyer on April 19th, 1921. 50 foot wide by 1,325 people. So it's amazing. This stuff comes from everywhere. It's just, it's amazing. So as we're standing now, looking down South Bay Avenue, this is the first house. This one here is number 3 South Bay. This was owned on Muncie Island by Dr. R.M. Hill. The name is right there, and the name is right there on Amityville as well. So again, a lot of these people, I think once they started bringing their houses to Amityville, they're like, you know what, let's do that. My house is sinking too, let's get it out of here. So that's not the old house.
Yeah.
It's not their
No, you're close. You're too cool for the room.
Sorry.
We're getting there. That's the old house.
That's the
Now wait, I got a good picture of this one. Of course, not my house, but everybody else.
I know.
So this one, the cool part about this, I guess, is the reason why I have these pictures is because this is Dr. G.H. Hofstetter, Dockstetter, right? So it was brought here in the 1920s. Today it's owned by Joe Hall, right? So now take a look at this one. Hello. So this is the house on Muncie Island.
Oh, wow.
And this is one from 1939. So the reason why I know this is the same house is the only reason, I can only find these small little things, right? Is this, see this little hip right here? Little valley? There it is, right there. So that's the exact same house. Because when you look at it, a lot of these have changed. Some of them had outdoor, like I said, a lot of outdoor porches. When you talk about everything had an outdoor porch. They all had outdoor porches. They're all covered in now, you know, because snow and cold and all that. So that's a house in Muncie Island. Now, realistically, that, because of the way the gables are on that house, could be my house, but we don't know because I can't see that on the back. So we don't know. Now, George Lockstetter Jr. and Karen Ross, they met on Muncie Island, June 17th, 1916. Here it is. It says right here. First meeting, Muncie Island. This engagement book, which is well over 100 years old, am I right? It is so bright, it's like a friend.
Really?
Specs out everything. Tells all presents that were given, who gave you what presents. And that's important, because guess what? They married in 1920, they married. Their wedding present from George's parents was a house, said right in the book, a house, we moved from Muncie Island to South Bay Avenue for them to live in. Not bad, right?
Yeah.
I think
How much house? $5? Give me to it.
Maybe we should adopt me.
Right? Now, the important part is that Jack Robinson's wife was a Dockstetter, but she grew up at 7, Rick Hall's house, when she was a kid. Where did she grow up? She grew up on South Bay. She was a Dockstetter.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So this is 15 South Bay Avenue. You can see when you look at these, you're like, okay, these are very similar, right? All these houses have a lot of similarities. This is a house that was bought here in the 1920s. This is owned by Jill and Dick Kissel. Great Muncie Island house as well. Again, he had a picture which was good, Muncie Island photo from Oak Island, which is great. He gave it to me to take a copy of. This is the Smith's house. Now, if you listen to some of the names I'm saying, you're going to realize we got a lot of streets and avenues named after these people, right? Now, Smith, I'm not sure if this is the reason why Smith Street exists, but there are other blocks that are named after people on South Bay. This is the old Smith house, and you can tell this is looks definitely like a bungalow. It's got the gambrel roof with the little corners cut off, right? Mm-hmm. So it's got that whole Muncie Island thing going on. And it seemed like when he was building these houses, some of them had the same designs, but again, think about it this way. This guy's trying to sell houses on Muncie Island. He built model homes, so he built let's build these 4 or 5 different designs. Pick one, I'll put it there. You know, that kind of thing, right? He's a, shaper and mover, right? Yeah, again, with this little eyebrow on the top, right? Very popular design at the time, right? This is 20 South Bay Avenue. Cliff and Barbara Demorst lived there. I believe that's a Muncie house as well. Now, this is a great example. You can't beat this. This is the picture I wanted of my house. This house has never changed in 100 years, literally. I mean, of course, I said, can you send me a picture of your house with that? Why? My taxes went up. Listen, your taxes went up. But it's the wrong corner. But if you see, if we took this house and turned it around, here's the eyebrow over here. Here's the eyebrow here, right? It's the same house. Look at that roof. The only thing different is, of course, again, the porches, covered porches back.
And Chuck, I can't see the bottom. That's when it was on Muncie Island?
Yeah, this is 1919. You see, it's getting ready to be moved. You can see the guys that are there, cribbing and stuff. It's already up on the cribbing, so they're getting ready to move it. That's Christine and Kenny
Cardozo.
What?
Cardozo.
Yeah, Cardozo.
Okay, I know that house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Opie's friends. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is George Dock Center. So originally Docks, this house is this one, this house is this one, this house is this one. You take it with a grain of salt because Opie's house wasn't there. It was land because I cut it when I was a kid. I used to cut the grass. So a lot of these houses were built after the fact. So even like talking to the post office, some of the house numbers would change over the years when they put a new house in. So you can't go by a house number. But if you look, this is the house that I believe was Dockstetter's house. This is the wedding gift house right here. This is what it was in 2007 with the porch closed. Today it's owned by Brandon Ruland, and it looks more like that. He took it down after Sandy because it was pretty much destroyed, and they built it.
Yeah.
But this looks like it could be a Muncie house. Now this is a great picture. I love this one. This is the same angle. George Dockstetter with Cardozo's house in the back, with his house right there, standing basically in his front yard, right? How interesting is that, right? So I got tons of pictures of kids playing on the block or playing on that side of the neighborhood. Nothing of my house. We're not gonna put that in there. It's not happening. It's not happening. So this is 27. This was owned by Mrs. Billy Quintard on Muncie Island, and it was moved to South Bay. Later it was the Olga Niffenmacher, George Niffenmacher. Today it's owned by Jackie Hodgin, but that's yesterday. And today it was raised after Sandy, like most of the houses were. This one here, I'm not sure if it was a Muncie house, but it was definitely there in 1925. Again, the idea is what I look for is you see this little spot in the roof here, right? And there it is right there. There's that little front door thing going on there, right? So these small little things, it's amazing how sometimes they don't change. Sometimes they do. That's today. They change the front, makes it look a little nicer. So this one here, of course, McDonough, he decided he was going to buy this house and work on it, and I realized this is a bay house. This is a pain in the ass. And so he wound up taking it down, and he built a new house. Because like I said, it's concrete. It's unbelievable. You can't, there's not a lot you can do with it. It's a tough one. This house here is a new house. It was a Muncie house, where it is now. It was owned by Mr. D. Boyd and brought to South Bay in the 1920s. It burned down in 1995. Guy was finishing the cabinets, decided he was pretty much done. I'm just going to add a house out. Turned my non-explosion proof fan on and blew the house up. Sent them out to the front yard. I was there for that fire. That was a good one. So yeah, we lost that house. Can't win them all. What are you gonna do, right?
Yeah.
So this one here is 32. This is the Rockefeller's Hunting Lodge. So the story goes that this one here was on Muncie, and it was brought to South Bay. 1925 is the picture I have here. You can see this little garage here. It's still the same garage. Now again, you know it's the same house because look at this door here, right? It's got that little door, and there it is. There's that little back door, right? Now, as the story goes with this one, this house was so big that when they brought it in on the garage, they didn't think about it right, or whether the story was that it brought it up the canal, which I don't think that's the case. Because I heard most things were brought up the block. But somehow or another, they couldn't turn the thing around, so you're looking at the back of the house. The front of the house is on the house. They just stripped. It's probably Friday, it was 4:30. Hey, we gotta get some ale. So, so this is really the back of the house is what you're kind of looking at, but it is what it is. This one here was owned by Reverend William Short on Muncie Island, came to South Bay. Of course, this was elevated a little bit after Sandy. Later it was Mrs. Canna owned this house. I remember it being green, stucco, remember back in the day? Black trim. Painted. He's going to know that black trim. Who thinks about making black trim? My stairs were black. Who paints stairs black? So this one here was also Reverend H. Short, and it was owned by Weber. They used to come out in the summertime and vacation, I guess, and go back to Cincinnati. And now it's owned by Mrs. Bud. So that's a Muncie house as well. This one here, the owner's not here, so I can tell you what this house really was. But this house was also from Muncie Island, and it was brought to South Bay. This was later owned by William Swartout, which was the past fire chief of New York City. And then the Jamesons, the Whalens, and now Mike and Cindy O'Lear. So, of course, Swartout, he's the one that Swartout is named after. And this used to be, now I don't know how he knew this because he passed away by the time it was handed to me. A lot of these things were after the fact. I get somebody left something in my mailbox. I didn't even remember who it was, to be honest. And it said that this was a former house of Hillary people. I don't know if that's true or not. Yeah.
Well, Billy lives at the end of
LeBron.
LeBron.
Right. Well, I talked to him. He had no pictures. There was nothing. Actually, he was having it was his mom's birthday party, and he was going to go over there and talk to her and see if she had any pictures, and she had. So, but there's a lot of no. So, so there's a lot of information about these houses. This one's Frank Iannello's house. We had a guy lived there when I was a kid. We called him the professor. That's what he wanted to be called. Because I had that curved top door, had the glasses. He looked like a professor. So that's a yesterday and today one.
Yes.
That's a good looking house.
It's beautiful inside and the backyard. Yeah.
So I won't tell you any more about the house.
Just tell everybody else.
No, I'm not gonna tell you, because I don't want you to tell Frank.
I've been in it.
I don't want to tell you, Frank, when I found out about the house. Ooh, no. It was said that the house was underwater for 6 months
Oh, wow.
before it moved out.
Yeah.
But again, all of this is left to interpretation. We don't know. So this is, we go and we look across the street. This one is a Muncie house. Also built in 1917. The people that were there before did some history on it, came up with that. This was the house that Mrs. O'Keefe lived in, and she's the one that told us about the houses being moved and so forth and so on. Today it's owned by George Tranos and Diane O'Keefe. But yeah, I believe this was a Muncie house as well. It's got all the characteristics of it. So this one is our house. Of course, I have no pictures of the street that are older than whatever I took in the 1980s. I don't know why that's the case, but that's what it is. So this house was owned by Chester and Eva Brand. So we don't know if anybody owned it on Muncie, but we're only the second owners in the last 100 and some odd years. So of course, Brand, because of Brand Avenue, right? They also own land on Norman. The people across the street, the house directly across the street that came from Massapequa, was not a Muncie house. But the Normans lived there, and they're the ones that own Norman Avenue. And so the fall of Muncie Island. So, you say this is a pretty big island, but it got flooded, right? So Robert Moses, he wanted to make the Ocean Parkway. He wanted to do that big parkway thing. So they had to fill in Cedar Inlet. Remember, Cedar Inlet was a pretty big inlet. So in order to fill that in, they started digging up some of the dirt that was available from Muncie Island, because guess what? When he proposed this, the fill was only $2 a yard. Now it's $100 a yard. So he said, let's do that. So what they did is they got a state trooper all decked out with guard, the whole thing, gun, the whole whatnot, bang up people's doors, come get out. And 2 weeks later, they condemned everything. They didn't give people an opportunity to go to court to get their property or their houses or anything. They dug it up and basically used it to fill in for not only the inlet, which took, I think, 1.7 million cubic yards of dirt to fill in Cedar Inlet, so they could drive a car across it, but also to raise Ocean Parkway up, the level of Ocean Parkway, so it wouldn't get flooded when storms happen, because we wanted that parkway down. So they took over Muncie Island in 1929. So one of the other interesting things was that Doc had put in his article that Muncie Island Hotel, you say this is a pretty big hotel. What happened to that? Well, as the story goes, in 1928-ish, the hotel was burned down by kids playing hooky in the hotel, and that's where the hotel went. But lo and behold, we're sitting at this table at Ho's One. You got Jack, you got Doc, you got Steve Bryce. Jackson. Go over there to the boatyard and talk to Dave Southern. He's in Babylon. He knows everything. So I sent Bonnie over to talk to Dave Southern. And goes to the boatyard. I want to talk to Dave. Dave doesn't come in yet. Dave's still sleeping. So she waits at 11 o'clock. Where's Dave? Dave's still sleeping. Finally, 12 o'clock, Dave shows up. And he goes, the kid goes, what do you want Dave for? I want to talk to Dave. What? Well, on Muncie Island. Muncie Island? Kid, he goes, I just bought a map of Muncie Island off eBay just came yesterday. He pulls out the map of Muncie Island, that foot with all the names on it.
Wow.
And that's how we learned what Muncie Island was. Right? So she talks to Dave and goes, Dave, listen, so I heard you used to know a lot about Muncie Island, blah, blah, blah. Nah, what do you want to go there for? There's nothing left. There's nothing. No, my God. She's trying to explain to him. He's 90-something, right? Yeah. Trying to explain to him. Listen, I just want to know more about it. You know it? Nah, me and my friends, we used to leave school, play hooky ball, and play in a hotel. Dave shut right up. So Bonnie put a over 100-year cold case for arson. Because I'm pretty sure that's why Dave shut right up. So that was fixed. And that's Captain Sandy pretty much about here.
Ken Bud, Richard Ham.
I have to say, it must have taken a special group to get raise the house, move it onto a barge,
Oh, my God.
take it off the barge, get it up on land another time, and then get it, yes. I mean,